15,000 years ago, you are a hunter-gatherer sitting by a fire in the absolute pitch black of the wilderness. Your entire life basically consists of finding food and trying not to be eaten by something larger than you. You hear a sudden rustle in the brush, you freeze. A pair of glowing yellow eyes stares back at you from the shadows. Normally, this is the part where you run or the part where you become dinner. But this specific animal just sits there, watching you. And for some inexplicable reason, you decide not to throw your spear. That tense, silent stare down in the dark is exactly where the story of every dog on Earth begins. But the story of how an apex predator became a creature that now sleeps on your pillow and cries when you leave the room. For 30 seconds is not what you think. The classic myth is that some brave caveman found a litter of wolf pups, brought them home, and tamed them to be loyal hunting companions. It sounds heartwarming, but it is completely biologically wrong. If you take a wolf pup from the wild today, raise it with love, and let it sleep in your bed, it will not become a dog. It will become a fully grown, highly dangerous wolf that destroys your living room and possesses all its predatory instincts. You cannot domesticate a wild apex predator through sheer willpower. Zoos and wildlife sanctuaries have known this for centuries. So if humans did not intentionally tame wolves, what actually happened? The leading scientific consensus is deeply humbling. Humans did not domesticate dogs. Wolves domesticated themselves, and they did it for our garbage. As human hunters became more successful, they started generating something that no other predator in the ecosystem was producing at scale: consistent, reliable garbage. They left behind massive piles of discarded bones, scraps, and animal parts they could not eat. For a hungry, opportunistic scavenger like a wolf, a human camp was essentially the equivalent of a Michelin star restaurant opening up in the neighborhood. But there was a catch. The biggest, most dominant, and most aggressive alpha wolves were naturally terrified of the loud, fire-wielding humans. They kept their distance. The only wolves that dared to edge closer to the fire were the ones that were slightly less afraid, slightly more curious, and slightly calmer. They approached, they ate the scraps, and they survived. These calmer wolves had puppies, and those puppies inherited that slightly lower fear of humans. Over generations, this created an evolutionary pressure that nobody planned for. The friendliest wolves got the most food, lived longer, and had the most offspring. Natural selection was blindly nudging a terrifying predator toward us. This brings us to one of the most fascinating scientific experiments of the 20th century. In the 1950s, a Russian geneticist named Dmitry Belyaev wanted to test exactly how this happened. He began selectively breeding silver foxes. In every generation, he tested all the foxes for how they responded to humans, and he only bred the ones that showed the least fear and aggression. That is it. No other selection criteria. What happened next was extraordinary. Within just a few generations, these captive foxes started changing physically. Their ears became floppy, their tails started to curl, their coats developed random patches of white and brown, their faces got rounder, and they started seeking human attention. Without anyone telling them to, the foxes had turned into dogs. Scientists call this domestication syndrome. It turns out that the genetic pathways controlling a calm demeanor and a low-stress response are deeply linked to a whole suite of physical traits. When you breed an animal for friendliness, you accidentally trigger a cascade of changes. Floppy ears and spotted coats are basically just the biological bonus features of a friendly brain. This proved that wolves hanging around human camps could have started showing dog-like traits surprisingly fast. But domestication is a two-way street. When these newly friendly, floppy-eared wolves started hanging around, human behavior had to change too. At some point, an ancient person had to consciously decide that this creature was tolerable. Soon, humans realized these strange wolves were incredibly useful. They had vastly superior hearing and smell. They became living alarm systems, barking when rival tribes or dangerous predators approached the camp in the dark. We started sharing more food with them. We let them sleep closer to the fire. The wolves that liked humans survived better, and the humans that kept wolves survived better. It was the ultimate ancient partnership. But as this partnership deepened over thousands of years, the actual brain chemistry of these animals was entirely rewired. If you point your finger at an object, a dog will naturally look at what you are pointing at. A wolf, even one raised by humans, will just stare blankly at your finger. Dogs have evolved to read human communicative cues better than any other animal on the planet. Even more remarkably, dogs learned how to use eye contact. In the wild, two wolves locking eyes is a direct challenge for dominance, but your dog has evolved to look deeply into your eyes to seek information and comfort, and when they do, both of your brains release a surge of oxytocin. This is the exact same chemical hormone that creates the bond between a mother and her newborn baby. In one of evolution's strangest plot twists, a carnivorous predator biologically hacked the human brain to make us love it like a child. And they did not stop there. Dogs evolved a unique facial muscle above their eyebrows that wolves completely lack, called the levator unguli oculi medialis. It allows them to raise their inner eyebrows, creating that sad, vulnerable puppy dog eyes expression. They evolved this muscle over thousands of years because it completely manipulates human emotions. It makes us want to protect them. By 10,000 years ago, this bond was absolute. Archaeologists have found ancient human graves from this period containing dog bones. These animals were not food. They were carefully laid to rest right beside their humans. In a freezing world of brutal hardship, ancient humans were spending their precious emotional energy grieving and burying their dogs. It was the first time in history that humans formed a relationship with another species purely for companionship. Today, somewhere in the world, a descendant of the mighty apex predator is wearing a tiny knitted sweater, eating artisanal grain-free salmon, and sleeping on a memory foam mattress. The wolf lost its ferocity, but it gained the ultimate survival strategy, us. Thank you so much for watching Ancient Origins. If you learned something new today and want to uncover more incredible stories from our past, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one.